Welcome to the Silent Thinking Podcast, a space to slow down, breathe, and reconnect. Today I'm reading from When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister by Dave Roberts and Patty Furino. Just listen and let the stillness support you. Chapter 5 The Awakening. As mentioned in the introduction, much of the content of this book developed from Patty's willingness to channel messages from highly evolved spiritual beings. Conversation shifted quickly and covered a huge range of categories. Patty yearned for more understanding of the human experience and its place in the universal plan. Greater knowledge and wisdom can be accessed by all if we just make time for reflection, prayer, meditation, or any spiritual practice. It is her belief that everyone can connect to the great beyond if they so choose. Patty's passion gave me the inner desire and determination to achieve that level of knowing. I was grateful that Pat trusted me enough to share details about who she was and what lay behind the mask of being the housewife on the corner of Hunter and Whittier. This was a saying she used over and over again to downplay the significance of her abilities, and as she frequently mentioned, to stay humble. Over the years, Pat shared many details of the various levels of her awareness. During our conversations, I would notice a significant change in her language, articulation, and demeanor as spirit would speak through Pat. From minute to minute, I never knew who was speaking. One minute I could be chatting with Pat about our animal companions. The next minute it could be, for all I knew, Gandhi sharing some deep, profound wisdom. I never questioned the validity of these spirits because of my personal experience with Jeannine's spirits month earlier. Jeannine brought to me an interfaith minister who was beneficent and kind, allowing me to access to many different levels of spiritual intellect. I learned to go with the flow, embracing whatever came through her, even if I could not understand the significance of the teachings in the moment. It was the ultimate test of trust, letting go of what I knew to be true and embracing a world where things could not be really proven immediately and empirically. One of my death and dying and bereavement students at Utica College eloquently wrote about trusting in the unknown, using a quote from Maury Schwartz in Mitch Albom's book, Tuesdays with Maury. Sometimes you cannot believe what you see, you have to believe what you feel. I'm blessed to count my students as among my greatest teachers. When Pat and I recall those early conversations, the themes revolved around two separate yet intertwined concepts: establishing an ongoing relationship with my daughter Jeannine, learning how to transform my grief as a result of establishing that relationship. Patty was always conscious of respecting my boundaries and the right to self-determine how I viewed my world. During the course of our conversations, she would sometimes question her role with me, pondering, "What right do I have to transform your grief? I shouldn't tell anyone to stop grieving their child." As a therapist, I planted food for thought, allowing my clients the space to find their own truth and determine their own path, even if their own truth meant rejecting the suggestions I made. Patty was going the same thing with me, planting the seeds for new ideas and perspectives, empowering me to grow and in the process find my own truth, always reminding me that we all are the authors of our own book of life. Pat introduced me to the ancient concept of numerology, which taught me always to create new meaningful moments with Jeannine. The significance of numerology first made itself known to me on March 1st, 2011. March 1st, 2011 was the 8th year of living without the physical presence of my daughter. Patty found that to be intriguing and described the significance of the number 8. Turned sideways, the number 8 becomes the infinity symbol, meaning eternity. Patty emphasized the importance of this number and its connection to my metamorphosis. Explaining Jeannine showed up at this point in my journey to ease my intense grief leading up to date of her death. Patty suggested I develop my own unique ritual to connect with Jeannine, as this will allow me to recognize that she still exists, but in a different form of energy. Patty equated it to how Jesus appeared to the apostles after his death. He revealed himself as a form of energy recognizable to his closest friends, engulfing them with his love, or what we now refer to as the Holy Spirit. I took Pat's advice and ultimately created an activity I felt would assist in connecting with my daughter. Knowing Jeannine and I bonded to music, I created a playlist loading certain songs on my iPod that we both enjoyed. On the morning of Jeannine's 8th anniversary, I lit some incense, put my headphones on, and invited her into my sacred space. My iPod was in shuffle mode. The first two songs that played were by the Goo Goo Dolls and the Jean Blossoms. This was significant because the first concert that I took my daughter to when she was 13 featured both of these bands. There was no coincidence. I could feel Jeannine's presence. I spent an hour with the spirit of my daughter and felt a sense of calm and peace that lasted the entire day. Later that evening, I spent time with my son, Dan, Jeannine's older brother. We talked, reminisced, and shared a wonderful time together. The experience I shared with Jeannine allowed me to bond with Dan, freeing myself from the pain and yearning I felt on previous anniversaries. Patty's suggestion that I create my own connection with Jeannine proved to be a spiritual practice that truly offered me clarity and peace. I continued to connect with Jeannine in similar fashion for the next 2 years on her anniversaries, always feeling her presence and similar feelings of peace. As an aside, I recall first hearing the term anniversary used by Mitch Carmody in a grief workshop that he was facilitating. I found that I was more comfortable using anniversary to describe her date of death as opposed to the more traditional death anniversary. The term anniversary allowed me to focus on her transformation into an eternal presence rather than on the death of her physical body. On her 11th anniversary, my relationship with Jeannine evolved in a way I never would have envisioned. I was so moved by the experience that I wrote a blog, some of my written reflections of that day, March the 1st, 2014. Since year 8 of my life as a parent who has experienced the death of a child, I have written about the teachings I have discovered when spending time with Jeannine on her anniversary date. I decided that I wanted to share my experience again as we approach spring, a time of both rebirth and renewal. I have discovered clarity in ritual and ceremony, while recognizing that Jeannine still exists, but in a different form of energy. I recently told a friend of mine that I no longer look forward to her anniversary with dread, but with anticipation of the new teachings to be discovered. Inevitably, the teachings that I discover not only strengthen my relationship with Jeannine, but also enhance the service that I provide to others. I never envisioned embracing or even wanting to embrace this perspective in early grief, but today I feel empowered because I have. In this moment, I look at her death as a rebirth into a new life in a world that is governed by unconditional, never-ending love, bliss, and the absence of malice and rancor. Jeannine and I share a pure spiritual relationship that embodies all of the positive qualities that are in her world. I do at times yearn for her physical presence, and I believe she at times yearns for mine. Whenever I receive a sign from her, I believe it is because she yearns for my physical presence as well as the physical presence of my wife and 2 sons. When a spirit makes themselves known to you, they are making themselves known to all that is a part of you. The morning, I spent some quiet time inviting Jeannine into my sacred space and sharing my gratitude for the relationship that we continue to share and the teachings that she continues to reveal to me about life, death, and the value of life. I also encouraged her to continue to evolve spiritually, and if she so chose to make herself part of the universal intelligence that guides all who walk in the awareness to do so with honor and integrity, and to help them inspire others to do the same. To empower Jeannine to continue to evolve in her new life is the greatest gift that I can continue to give her as her father. It is the greatest gift that I can give to myself, for it is the gift of peace. In year 11, I gave Jeannine permission to grow and evolve in her new existence. Had she still been part of the physical world, she would be 27 years old. Patty pointed out I would have had to give her the autonomy to grow, allowing her to forge her own identity and find her own truth independent from the family she was born into. This 11th year ritual was another springboard catapulting me into greater spiritual awareness, empowering me to embrace wholeness and peace in all areas of my life. It was the beginning of my movement from the raw pain of grief to embracing and accepting Jeannine's new life, while continuing my sacred relationship with her. Signs not only signal the presence of our loved ones, but help us achieve a greater understanding that the journey continues and relationships can be eternal. A theoretical framework that lends context to my experience with Patty originated from Dennis Glass's book, The Spiritual Lives of Bereaved Parents, published in 1996. His book is a resource that I frequently refer to during my death, dying, and bereavement class at Utica College. In his book, he discusses spirituality and the bond with the deceased. In their continuing bonds, parents no longer have an outer relationship with their children. Instead, they maintain the children as an inner representation that they can call on in difficult times, which comforts them in their sorrow and provides a means by which they can access their better self. Dennis Glass and Edith Maria Stephan further elaborated on the significance of continuing bonds in their recently edited book, Continuing Bonds in Bereavement, New Directions for Research and Practice. Phenomena that indicate active continuing bonds are a sense of presence, experiences of the deceased person in any of the senses, belief in the person's continuing active influence on thoughts or events, or a conscious incorporation of the dead into the self. Though I previously described the accounts of my experiences with Jeannine as rituals, Pat suggested to view them as activities which simply strengthened my bond with her. I did not do these activities regularly. I did them on her angelversaries, birthdays, and any other time that I desired to connect with her. Whenever I consciously connected with Jeannine, I sensed her presence and grew to believe that she was playing an active role in my journey, all of which I validated by Glass's and Stephan's descriptions of the purpose and function of continuing bonds with the deceased. We can also utilize continuing bond activities to create new relationships with those deceased relatives or friends with whom we had unresolved conflicts in the physical world. Conflicts that for whatever reason were not capable of being resolved in the human form. We discuss this further in Chapter 7. Psychology addresses rebuilding the assumptive world through, among other things, the use of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. In this type of therapy, individuals attempt to consciously challenge their beliefs following a crisis or to change self-defeating patterns of behavior or thinking. CBT is frequently used by psychologists and other human service professionals. It is found to be particularly helpful to individuals with depression, substance use disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. I believe that if we can effectively integrate the spiritual practice of continuing bonds and CBT, our beliefs and worldwide can become more effectively aligned with the new reality. In May of 2011, I developed an activity which allowed me to integrate some of the newfound teachings from Pat. I named this activity Pieces of Me. My initial goal was to help parents identify the best qualities of their deceased children and embody them into their own lives so that they could establish and maintain continuing bonds. However, this activity can be used by anyone who has experienced the death of a loved one. Pieces of Me enriches who we are because the positive characteristics of our loved ones become integrated within us. In the process, our life narrative change because we have consciously decided to make the best parts of our loved ones' lives an active part of ours. Here are the 3 basic questions that I ask people to reflect upon. What qualities or characteristics of your loved one do you admire the most? How can you make these qualities part of your own life so that you can find meaning and joy amidst the sadness of grief? How can you make these qualities a part of your own life to empower continuing bonds with your loved ones? Through my experiences and conversations with Patty, I realized that an activity like Pieces of Me can truly shift our perspective and beliefs about the finality of death. We can begin to entertain the possibility that we, in fact, survive death and are eternal. Embodying the best qualities of our loved ones allows them to stay alive within us, thus allowing us to maintain our bonds with them. Modifying beliefs involves change. Though one may understand the need to change, she may be reluctant or even fearful because change itself is uncomfortable. It involves acknowledging behaviors that once served us no longer applies in the aftermath of a crisis. Although we may understand the benefits of change, we may still hang on to old beliefs and behaviors because we are comfortable with them. However, when we decide to embrace change, we may discover something wondrous. The death of those parts of ourselves we were once comfortable with, but no longer serves us, is the gateway to the awakening of new perspectives. Shedding the old for the new allows us to thrive in the midst of uncertainty. Individuals may also be fearful or hesitant to assimilate new beliefs because of their perception they have to abandon their core beliefs. Patty remembers studying at a new seminary and its founder, Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, would express the importance of when you are learning something new, it is not instead of, but in addition to what we already believe. We can incorporate new spiritual perspectives with science and vice versa. We don't have to give up any of our core beliefs in the process. Though fulfilling and empowering spiritual work takes us to a deeper understanding of the human experience, both the good and the messy parts of the journey. Thank you so much for sharing this quiet moment with me. If this brought you peace, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need a little stillness too. Until next time, keep listening inward.